Hello, everybody. Thanks, Ryan and Chris, for your service and such an interesting presentation. Listening to it, it was both incredible and also felt like how uninteresting my life has been so far. Um, I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of agentic word, AI in trade. I'm going to spend the time on thinking through, like, how do you think behind the hype, behind the headlines, behind all the hallucinations that, AI real value in space. Um, my name is Harish. I'm CEO and co-founder of Augment. And let's start with something almost unrelated. Um, this is the market share for rides in San Francisco across three providers. Um, and who can tell me the black line here? Which company is the black line? Waymo, right? They started 2.5 years ago. They're about 30% of the market in San Francisco, gaining market share almost every week. That's pretty incredible. That's not demo. That's not hype. That's real value, right? They're running 250,000 rides now a week, uh, and that's roughly about $2.5 million worth of rides a week and growing pretty incredible thing. Now, what's even more interesting is that to get to 30% of market share in San Francisco, Waymo only has 300 cars. Lyft has about 2,000 cars, and Uber has 4,000. So with 1/10 of the cars, they're able to deliver as many rides as if as Lyft. That's pretty incredible, right? But why is that? Any guesses? Why can they deliver so many rides with such few cars? What was it? Efficiency? What else? Yeah, there's no people, so the car runs 24/7. People have to sleep. AI does not. What else? User experience is cleaner. It's always on time. There's less errors, so people are preferring to call that rides. Yep, safe. Um, Maybe the published stats are that way more safer than drivers today. But there's one more thing, which is every Waymo car knows where every other Waymo car is. They have a view of the entire city. They know what the hotspots are and when those hotspots are going to come. So they can reposition themselves to be where the demand is going to be, right? That's the that's sort of when each Waymo in itself is doing um, self-driving, but there's an overarching AI system that's also determining where the Waymos need to get placed, which creates an incredible amount of productivity because they're not having wasted time. They're not having times when they're sitting idle, right? And so we've seen this. AI is not all hype, right? This is real value here. We're also seeing real value in software, right? At Augment, I'm sure most of the software companies here. At Microsoft, now 30% of the code is written by AI. Microsoft has 100,000 engineers. That's 30,000 engineers worth of code being written by AI every single day. Right? That's also real value. Now, how do you get these Waymo moments, these Microsoft moments for free? Like, how do you get to value in freight? Let's look a little bit between software and freight operations, right? So first, AI was built by software engineers, and it was built a little bit for software too. The first set of LLM models were trained a lot on the code, so it's really good at code, you know. And software is sort of a solo pursuit. You and your machine, you're writing the software, and you can get a lot done. Software also does not have as many tools. There's maybe 4 or 5 IDEs, development environments that software engineers work with, right? So it's actually a simpler problem than freight. Freight is human to human, right? To organize the freight to go from point A to point B, you now have about 6 companies, from shippers to brokers to trucking companies to the pickup warehouse, the drop-off warehouse, and the lending companies have to stay coordinated. All of them have 6 different systems. All of them might have 6 different communication platforms. And on top of that, there's languages, Then there are people offshore. So it creates this messiness. So, freight adoption is a little bit behind software. I would think about 12 months or so, because the problem is harder, but also the opportunity is bigger because it's a harder problem. If you can solve it, you can create much more value with freight. Right? And and there is clear value, right? Like early attempts of AI in freight, you're seeing reduced human workforce in it, so more productivity for people, less error potentially. You're seeing cycle time speed up. You're seeing things like scheduling getting done easier, tracking loads getting done easier, load building getting done easier. All of that then results in better, faster, cheaper, which then ultimately results in the two things that everybody in this room should care about, which is, am I growing more or am I having more profit? Right? And that's sort of the value chain of trade. And it's so important to stay focused on the growth and the profit. There's lots of promise in trade, you know. But really, last week, Gartner came out with this and said 40% of all agentic projects will be canceled in the next 2 years or so, right? And why is that? So we will go into how can we not be, how can we make this, how can we disprove this thesis? How can we not be on this thing where our projects are getting canceled? How do we get away from the hype and go into real value? So I'll speak about 4 or 5 things here, on what I have observed so far building Augment and implementing Augment, and Augie, in what is being the buzz, what's being the myth, and what's the reality and what matters, right? Let's start with the very first one, which is this idea that now I've got AI and I'm going to put it into my business process, right? I've got a business process and I'm going to see where I can fit. I'm making calls today. Maybe I can make AI make the call. That's fitting AI into my business process. I think the reality is that AI is such a powerful tool that you might need to rethink your business process with AI, right? And we've seen this story play out before, right? Blockbuster and Netflix, now I'm dating myself, even before streaming, they both shipped DVDs. They both at one point had the same website. You could actually order in the DVD on Blockbuster's website. They actually had more selection than Netflix. But there was one difference. When you ordered from Blockbuster's website, you had to go to Blockbuster to pick it up and then return it. Netflix changed the business process. They said, we will deliver the DVDs to you in your inbox and you can return it right there. One difference in process. And you see the result. There's only one Blockbuster left. There is one in Oregon today, and Netflix is in every TV. Netflix took the new technology, which was e-commerce, and changed the business process. They didn't adopt, they didn't put the process, they didn't put the technology to existing process. They changed the process, right? And they of course kept innovating after that, and they embraced AI better than anyone, embraced streaming better than anyone else, and that's why they're the leaders today. Um, let's go to the second myth, which is, and Ryan and Chris alluded to this, which is like, hey, I'm going to stitch the AI tools. I'm going to have a voice bot. I'm going to have an email bot. I'm going to have a text bot. I'm going to have somebody that will give me my reporting. I'll have 5 or 6 tools, and I'm going to stitch them together. Um, the reality is that each AI agent that is doing work is creating context. And if that context is not passed to the next agent's work is irrelevant. And so either you have to do the work to stitch the context, or you find platforms that stitch the context for you, right? And if you think about code itself, code sort of started off by saying, hey, I'm going to auto complete the code, which is you write the code 90%, and I'm just going to make sure it ends well, it has the right class names. And then we are now today, and that created a little bit of productivity for engineers. Today we are, we have Cursor and Claude Code, and they're understanding the whole context. They read all your files, when you're writing code, they read even your documents, and then they start working with you as a co-pilot almost to say like, oh, you're writing it, I'm going to help write you with it, or let me write it and you can edit it. And this human AI interaction that is going on where human is bringing judgment, AI is doing a lot of work today in code. And then we're moving towards more and more tools like Cognition or Devin or Bubble.io where they're actually doing most of the work and you're just auditing the work, right? Now, Freight is, in my opinion, at the first stage today. We're at the code complete stage. We're still doing very little things with AI. We're doing simple things like, hey, build me this load, or I was making these calls and let AI make these calls, you know. Um, and and but there's so much opportunity to move from there to actually um, having the entire context being transferred. So let's take this example of, you on the left, you've got point solutions. You've got a voice agent who calls in for tracking and tracing. And he calls the driver, and the driver says, I'm running late. And he flags the issues to Slack or on your email. And now it's up to the ops team to figure out what to do next. So what does the ops team have to do? They actually have to listen to the transcript of the call and think what really happened. And that takes time. Then they have to call the carrier to reschedule the load. Then they have to go back and update the TMS. And then they have to call the customer to say, hey, we're running late. And I just wanted to let you know that. So really, you haven't really saved a whole lot of work. Maybe you saved a little bit of a call time, but then you've added the time for the human to understand the context. But if you look at the right, where, what would be the cursor for freight would be, it actually sees there was a late pickup notification. And if there was a late pickup notification, it computes the ETA, the new ETA. It doesn't need the call. It knows this truck is going to get late. It then checks available appointment windows, sets the new appointment, confirms it via SMS, and updates the TMS and notifies the customer. So it takes care of the entirety of the context. Now you're creating value because now your off people don't have to worry about it when they leave at 5 p.m. that, hey, is this truck going to make it or not? They know AI is going to take care of it. It is end to end. For that, you have to carry the context. If AI needs to know the late pickup notification, it needs to integrate with your TMS. It needs to compute revised ETA. It needs to do the SMS, and then it needs to also communicate to your customer. So true value really gets delivered when you have an end-to-end context that AI has, entirety of the data, not siloed things. Exactly what Brian and Chris talked about. So in this case, the call was never made, right? In the previous case, we were celebrating the call was made by AI, right? But the call was not needed. You could actually deduce the information from the late pickup. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never met a person who loves a call, a B2B call, right? And we don't even love a human call, let alone an AI call. So you should celebrate that. Yes, AI can do that. Yes, Augment does a lot of it, but that still is a defect. The idea is to not have the call. The idea is to get the work done. Right? The third one is AI is just another SaaS tool. It's another software. And a lot of people treat it and think, give me the license and I'm going to go run with it. And the reality is with AI, you're changing your business process. And so it is anything but software, right? Really, every time you're implementing AI, somebody who was doing that work is not doing that work. It means you have to retrain, you have to repurpose those employees, which requires change management. Right? And so a framework that we've used, and I think it's helpful for anyone to use, is before you even start implementing AI across your organizations, what is the goal? If in 18 months you get this done, What's your growth goal? What's your EBITDA goal? What is the number that you guys are shooting for? Tie it back to value levers. How are you going to get to that 15 million EBITDA improvement? Right? Oh, I'm going to reduce my offshore team. Oh, I'm going to reduce my DSOs. Hey, I'm going to improve my margin on spread per load because I'm going to talk to so many more carriers. But let's just have that very, very clear and specified. And then you have to figure out, like, okay, to get to those value levels, what are the executions and what are the metrics that I need to track to know I'm heading there? Short of this, it becomes too many shiny objects. And then 9 months later, you're like, okay, now I'm paying for AI and my P&L is the same. So what did, right? Unless it changes the P&L, it's going to feel like the same tab that one SaaS tool sold you again on your phone. It should not be that. There's so much more potential. So create this plan. Now it gives everybody accountability. Your CFO, your ops people, your engineering people. Like, this is the plan you're running towards. Every month, every quarter, every year, you're hitting back to this plan, saying, why are we not hitting it? Is AI not performing? Are we not change managing it? What needs to change for us to hit this plan? And the implementation for AI is also a little different, right? Like in software world, you bought a license and you moved on. You did a discovery, you did a test, you go live. Um, in the AI world, you have the value creation first. You have to understand like how you're going to create value. There's a ton of configuration because your processes, your workflows are yours that has to get customized into AI. But finally, once you take somebody live on AI, the change management that is required with AI is the most expensive part. It's actually not the AI. It is the most time consuming part, which is repurposing folks to newer jobs, right? Repurposing folks for growth. And and that requires a methodical uh, monthly or quarterly execution, which is we've implemented these workflows. Now we need to repurpose these people. Okay, are we going to benchmark whether AI is doing it right way? Once we hit the benchmark, then let's go repurpose and then rinse and repeat over the next 6 to 8 months. Let's talk about the fourth one, which is AI is today considered a productivity tool only, which is, hey, it's going to reduce my cost to serve, right? It's costing me, I don't know, $100 to make a load. AI is going to drop it down by 60. That's sort of most people think about AI, right? But if you bring all the data together for AI, actually it can transform the growth and the profit. It is both the top line and the bottom line. Um, and how does that work? First, when you get AI implemented well in a holistic way, it frees up people, and those people are now have more time to do creative work, high judgment work. That work can be, you know, relationships. That can be optimizing your lane, rate benchmarking, right? Um, doing more sales. So all the high value work that these folks are doing that should improve your growth. When AI does all the tedious work on the left. But that requires a very active change management on your behalf to say, when I get the left taken care of, I can move my folks on the right. Here's an example of it. So track and trace, I'm sure most of you guys have either internal or offshore teams who are tracking loads, right? And we know in spite of all the tools we've implemented, there's about a 60-65% coverage on those tools. So we do need to call, especially for pickup and drop off and in transit loads. And that requires time. But it doesn't require time from just the ops people. We know it requires time from your salespeople, your carrier salespeople, and ops people. Because every time a truck is not on time, it gets there's a message that goes on internally. Hey, what happened? Why is this truck not on time? Oh, let me let the customer know this truck is not on time. Oh, could you let me know when it's back on time? There is a lot of messaging that happens every single time a truck is late. Now, if you can really get AI to take care of this, track and trace, and really handle, humans are handling acceptance there, you're freeing people up, right? and say like on the right, you estimate what's the time spent on track and trace by function. You say if I get this right, I'm going to save that many heads. Now I can move those heads to drive more sales, to drive more spread for loads, and to lower cost to serve. If I can repurpose the people, retrain the people, so extremely important to run these things, methodically. Here's another example of document selection, right? Like nobody likes again collecting documents in this world. So many email chains to just get the document, but you need the document to start invoicing. Money stops flowing if the document isn't there, whether it's proof of delivery or accessorials or lumpers or layover receipts. So now AI is great at that. It can look at the document. It can see if the document is the right document. Is it signed? Does it match the load number? It's great at that. And it is great at saving things and getting you the documents fast. And with one of the companies we work with, we learned that the savings from collecting documents now being moved to AI was, let's say, $1 million. But the savings in getting the documents faster was of almost $2 million because now your cash is less locked up. You can invoice faster, right? So this is a second order effect, which was actually bigger than the first order effect. It was bigger than the savings of people. Talk about the fifth and the last myth, which is it's it's like software. And the thing is, because most AI freight companies in fact, are built by software people. So there is this thing which is like, hey, it's like software in freight also. And we talked about it. It's nothing like software, right? First, freight is complex. It's messy. It's siloed systems. Um, there are six parties involved. All six have different systems, and and it's a highly fragmented industry. It's also transactional. There are things that you would do business with a trucking company that you might not do the business with them for like 6 months or maybe ever, right? Um, and so it requires coordination across systems. Software does not. Software is a solo pursuit. One person with the machine in a language where both machine and the person understand. So much easier problem than trade. Trade also has a very complex ontology, right? I mean, you guys know this better than anyone else. Between different modes, between LCL, STL, between reefer loads and dry vans, between grades, like every type of subfreight has an ontology, which is relationship of of the freight, people relationship, who can see what, permissions, who can edit what, can your customer see something, can your vendor see something? There's a lot of complexity there. None of that exists in software. So AI has to understand this ontology to do anything with it. If the AI is not understanding this ontology, that's saying, hey, I can never have my customer see the rate that I offer to my carrier. That's a very simple, relationship that you all understand. AI has to understand it. If it does not, it's going to do bad things, right? And so like, how do you bring all this knowledge together, which exists today in your PMSs, your Slack, um, in your CRMs, and can you extract that? Can you make that into a single sort of source of knowledge? And has AI access to that? That's where you turn AI from a cost to serve reduction to a growth driver. Because now you can ask questions which is, hey, like, which lane should I be running RFCs on? Hey, how, like this was an RFP, I lost. Why did I lose it? Could I have done better with it? Or what should I do to improve performance with this customer? Or instead of spending an hour and a half building a QBR for a customer or MBR, can AI build that for me? Because it has all the data. Would you build that QBR for me? Now you're transitioning to a different mode. You're transitioning from, hey, cut 10% of the cost to bring me 15% growth. And that to me is exciting. Um, so listen, like there's just, uh, it's, in my view, and I've built several businesses in internet before. It's the most transformative technology that I have seen, and I think it has and will have an incredible impact. Um, my parting thought to you guys is that one, as you are thinking about implementing AI for your organizations, first do the value exercise, figure out the dollars, how they're going to come, whether it's top line or bottom line, to hold everybody accountable. Because without that, there's just too many shiny objects, and you can get ahead of yourself. Um, avoid the trap. AI also has a lot of traps. It has the demo trap. I'm sure all of you guys been hit with lots of demos. Um, and avoid focus on the value. Like, say, how can it actually move my bottom line or my top line? Um, think end to end, not point solutions. The point solutions, if they don't talk to each other, they create a lot of noise, and you might end up a year from now and saying, "I've just created, a Frankenstein here, and what do I do with it?" Um, you might have teams that can put point solutions together. That's fine, but at least keep that on top of mind. Um, rethink your process and business with AI. Don't use AI just to fill in the process gaps today. Don't be the blockbuster, right? Be the Netflix. Um, celebrate removing full context. If AI can do the biggest thing is if you can remove context from people's minds, then they never have to worry about it. Now you're giving them freedom to actually think creatively, to exercise judgment, to spend time with customers or relationships. But they still have to, on back of mind, thinking like, I'm on top of this stuff. I need to make sure schedules happen. I need to make sure it gets delivered. You're not removing context, you know. And then the last, I cannot, um, emphasize this enough that change management, like it is the most important thing as you're going in your AI journey. It actually is not the tech. The tech is going to get, there will be many companies who will get you delivered the tech. It is the people who embrace it well and change manage with it, you know. And I feel like if we get these things right, like AI and freight will have its Waymo moment, right? You're not very far. Um, and it's super exciting. Uh, but just focus on value and our Waymo moment will happen. So thank you everybody. If there's any questions, I'll take it. We have a few minutes. Yep. Okay. So we do bring some best practices to it, but most we do uncover the workflows of that company, and then those get ultimately get implemented into Augment or Augment. Yeah. And we encourage you to do that um, because every company is different, your businesses are different, and you want to capture those nuances. That's what makes you who you are. So we've created some playbook works with you a little bit on that. Uh, yeah, I mean, this is a guys like CEO level. If it's not a CEO level initiative, it's not going to get done. Like CEO, CFOs, the core leadership has to be hand locked, bought in for a 12-month journey here.
And then last thing, which functions do you actually do with Augie, and how do you establish those benchmarks when you're working with the company?
Yeah, so today we are a lot more on the off side. So simple things like building loads, tracking loads, um, collecting documents, taking calls, customer service. Uh,
Okay. And then is your system based off of certain models, or are you already getting ready for like say GPT-5 that's coming out hopefully with the next
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
weeks?
yeah. That's a really good question. I think this is a pretty important point, which is to just give you a sense. We run behind the scenes about 4 different models today. And almost everything we do, every email, every phone call, every text, every interaction with your system or core UI system, we actually run things through several models. Because new models come and you don't know how good or bad they are for your use case. You have to build a full infrastructure to run almost everything across several models and then have scoring metrics around them. Then you can reliably deploy things or reliably change things. It's a pretty expensive infrastructure to do, but that's the only way because the models keep coming every month and you don't want to like get left behind. Yeah. Within Freightwaves, they need to add a solution that change the whole way they think of their whole process. If they CTO conversation, change your whole process and how you think. Um, we have one of the CEOs here who's using Augment. So, um, I think sort of it's to lay out, hey, what's your current process? Like, if you're honest about all your current processes and go deeper into it and saying, like, if you had AI who could do this, let's rethink it for you together. And then you're signing up for that. And then you're going deeper and saying, okay, if this were to implement, what would it do? How would I change my people? Right? And you have to be honest and direct about those convos, right? And okay, this is how it's going to change my people. Then you can get ahead and saying, how do I retrain these folks to be more on the sales side? How do I retrain these folks to be much more on the relationship side or account management side? And so yeah. But these are long convos. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys.